Welcome everyone to the UDL F1 League Brazilian GP round 20 of this 21 round championship. My name is Mr. Jamage, joined once again by Dylan. How are we doing today, Dylan?
I am doing fantastic. Looking forward to another great race.
The last time out was an absolutely stunning race in Coda. Dylan's first time commentating, and it was the best time to jump in. And it was a really great one to watch, and if any of you watching didn't see it, I do recommend you go back and watch it. Because now we have nobody leaving the pit lane. Everybody is pitching a tent and hanging out for a little while. So, after last week, the point standings for the Drivers' Championship were settled. The Drivers' Champion was Snipper Pig, who came out on top, and now Pecan has been put into P2 in the championship, because now we have finally somebody going out on track.
Snipper is the first one to head out and face the overcast. It thought we might had some rain earlier, but the forecast has changed last minute, and looks like it's going to stay dry, but
you never really know. In Brazil, it could rain any minute, so we're going to have to pay attention to the weather and make sure that we're right on top of it.
Looks like Snipper decided to set the trend as more than half the field comes out altogether. So finding clean air on this track might be difficult for these drivers during this qualifying session, as this is known for not being the longest track on the calendar by any means.
Yeah, Interlagos definitely isn't the longest track, but it's one of the best ones. Some really notable corners like the Senna S. Or if I had an English track map, this would be a lot easier for me. But like the Senna S or Junção. Two very, very tough corners on this track, especially the Senna S. But the Senna S, popularized by the man, the myth, the legend himself. As now we start our first qualifying laps of the session. Snipper Pig was the first across the line, so I will follow him through the Senna S. A nice left-right, and now back through this long sweeping left-hander of turn 3 down the Reto Pasta up towards turn 4 DRS zone, braking at about the 100-meter board, taking a nice sharp left-hand turn. Very easy to extend right there, so you have to be very careful on throttles. Now we go to the long right-hand corner of Ferradura, I think. Very easy to extend this as well. And now into the first hairpin of the lap. Two very slow second gear hairpins, right, and then one to the left. But you want a really good exit for this, because there's a nice short straight up towards this next second gear hairpin. And then through this nice long left-hander of, I don't know how to say that. And then up towards Junção now, and then onto the not very straight final straight. Very short lap here. And like I said, like Dylan already said, there was rain in the forecast, which would make the lap a little bit longer, but not this time around, as Snipper Pig comes across the line to set the very first lap time of the session at a 108.849. Ref Josh and Honos come across the line right behind him. There's now a few... Go. There's now a few more drivers have set some lap times. Kill the Birdman puts himself up into P3 with a 109.7. A few more drivers have also set their lap times. You have a few new drivers in this race. Schweitzer, 2133, I believe that's his name. He is filling in for Hefty Bag in the Racing Point. Shawsome is in the Williams Mercedes this weekend as he crosses the line and goes up at a P3. So far, a good showing from him. Sinister Owl pops his Renault up at a P2. And then we also have Christopher Alex, 69, in his first UDL F1 League GP race in the hot seat.
So one thing that's interesting is both Ref Josh and Bossman going with the medium tire strategy that we talked about last week. It didn't really work last week, but we can see in these slightly more tropical conditions if they can get anything out of those tires.
And around Brazil might be the best bet for them because it's such a short lap. But those softs are really, really, really good. So that's around 7/10 of pace that they're losing by using those medium compound tires. And Ref Josh so far is making it work. He's in P7 at this point in time. Snell Zeus comes across the line to go up into P4.
That's one thing to talk about, is how short the straights are, really. Other than the front straight, which twists its way all the length down the straight, and the relatively short back straight, there's no straights on this track, so passing is going to be very difficult, which means that your qualifying position to set the grid is of utmost importance this week.
Absolutely. As Sniffer Pig comes across the line to set another lap, a 108.600. So Sniffer Pig decided to go on a 2-lap run instead of just 1 lap on those soft compound tires. Figured out that they had enough grip for a second lap. So now he extends his margin up top to around 5/10. They're saying that they can't hear you, Dylan, so
I will check that. Settings. I'm going to leave the party and rejoin real quick, see if that solves the problem.
Interlagos is now Dylan is back.
Hopefully that fixed the problems.
We will see here in a second. Get That Money and Run is making his first run here. He's going around the final corner, or second run, excuse me. Coming around the final corner, he was about 2.5 tenths up at the second sector timing mark. So let's see if he can continue a good run out of the final corner and get a good lap on the board. He does go 2 tenths faster, but stays in P11, only 0.005 of a second behind his teammate Ref Josh. While you were gone, Chris set a lap of a 108.858, put himself in a P2 with the mediums, so the medium strategy might just work for him. As Honos comes across the line, sets a 108.902, goes up at a P3 for that Alfa Romeo team. We're starting to really get a very strong lineup here of drivers here in the UDL League, so the top of the order is getting closer and closer.
Yeah, top of the order is very close right now. As the gap between second and fourth is under just over half of a tenth of a second. It's up to 7/100ths, but that is by no means a big distance at all. So
Drew Yu coming into this race predicting a Racing Point 1-2. Once again, last week out, it didn't really work out for him. They had some bad luck, but this week, Drew Yu's really going to be trying to get that 1-2, but he's going to have to do a whole lot better in this qualifying session. He's in P12 right now. Get That Money and Run, sets a lap to put himself into P6 for McLaren. Now the other McLaren of Ref Josh coming around the final corner. And he will be coming up to the line. He did not improve on his lap. There's somebody else coming up to the line behind him, and I'm not quite sure who it was. Sinister Owl on a flying lap. He just started this one. Or no, he's in the middle sector now. Let's see who else we have on a flyer. I think Sniffer Pig's on a flying lap. Let's see. Yes, he is. He's going down the straight now, following behind the Racing Point. Let's see if he can improve on his time. Very close to the inside there. And he does not improve. He is a 10th and a half slower in his last time. So Sniffer Pig will stay at a 108.6 flat. Sinister Owl, I believe, will be the next car around as the two Renaults and nose to tail here.
Been watching him. He looked nice, calm, cool, and collective through the second sector, and that's what you need to do in order to be fast around here. So we'll see if he can improve. And he does, up to second.
He does improve. Great lap there out of Sinister Owl. Good effort from him. Bossman, very low performance out of him so far. He's all the way in last place for Renault. So very shocking that the Renault driver of Bossman is all the way back there, and his teammate Sinister Owl is so far forward as now Sinister pulls out of the way of his teammate.
Yeah, very, very good teamwork there. Give his teammate a tow down the back straight, let him use DRS down the front straight and the back straight, giving a good tow, help him start out his lap. So we'll see what he can do this time around.
Drew Yu peels off into the pit lane. He would have been the next driver to cross the line. Let's see if Schweitzer can come across the line and improve. He goes into the pit lane as well. We've got a driver off the track somewhere. I'm not quite sure who it was, but I'm going to follow around Bossman now in that Renault. Let's see if he can improve from P16. He's got to gain 0.4 of a second just to get up one position. Let's see if he can gain a bit of time. This looks like it's going to be a good lap, and it is. He gains 1.6 seconds and goes up at a P6 with a 109.288.
Nice performance for him. As right now, pit lane is very busy as people are getting ready to put on their last set of tires to get a run out here on this track.
Man improved up into P13 from P16, where he was very briefly after Bossman's lap. So now the pressure is on Dilsack in the Toro Rosso to get out of P16.
Zeus hops up to P6 as he crosses the line this time by. Both Ferraris have been silently making their way up the order, currently running in P5 and P6.
The other Ferrari of Pecan just came around the final corner, and now let's see if he can improve on his lap. Looks like this might have been a cool-down lap, though. I'm not quite sure. We've already hit the 106 mark. It's going to be close. Let's see if he can go any faster. He does not. He's around 7 tenths off that lap.
As we have a spinner, Chris coming out of the last corner. He was 3 tenths up on his time coming through the second sector, which would have given him pole, but he lost it as he got on the power just a little bit too early coming out of last corner, trying to get a good run onto the front straight. Does a good job rejoining, making sure not to ruin anyone else's lap.
P3, he'll start P3 on the grid on mediums. A huge advantage for Chris here in terms of strategy. If there's a two-stop race in order for these drivers, it might just be a one-stop for Chris, and that'll be a huge advantage for him. Now Kill the Birdman coming around the final corner. He's a 10th and a half up on his time, as now he comes down the not-so-straight banana straight. Across the line, puts himself into P10. I'm going to jump back here to Pecan. Let's see what Pecan can do. He goes up into P2. Good effort from him to put himself on the front row provisionally with a 108.720. Sniffer Pig not even bothering to go back out on the track here for his final run, so he's very confident in his lap. There's quite a few drivers not on track right now, so
get that money. Looks like he's about to improve as well. He's currently in P8, and he jumps up to P6 after that lap, bumping Zeus down to 7th.
So get that money and run. Really needs a good showing here for his driver's points championship. He's been falling behind from the battle in the midfield. With a bunch of bad luck here in the last few races, he's going to want to get that back on track here as soon as possible. Ref Josh right behind him in the other McLaren. Good showing from McLaren in P6 and P7. Very close together on pace. So now we're nearing up to the 2-minute mark on the timesheets for this qualifying session. Kill the Birdman, peels off into the pit lane. Let's see who else is going to be coming around to finish a lap. Dilsack is coming close. Is there anybody else on the pit straight?
Don't believe so. Pit lane is currently heavily occupied. We have a few people on their outlap and a couple others on flyers, but right now it seems like everyone's going to wait until the last possible second to head out there and get their final lap in. If they wait too long, however, they won't be able to find a clear piece of track and it'll backfire on them.
Yeah, absolutely, and we don't want another repeat of Monza where a lot of people couldn't finish their lap because they were trying to get out of the dirty air or trying to get a slipstream. So very crucial that these drivers do get their final laps started, as I do see the Red Bull garage moving around, so Snipper Pig will go out for one final run to try to defend his pole position away from all these other drivers. They have a yellow flag in sectors 1 and 2. I believe that was just for a car letting someone by. Drew Yu comes across the line and improves up into P14, demoting Man Man into P15. As Man Man is in the wall, Man Man has lost his front wing. Not quite sure where this is. Sector 1, so this might be right after this
Senna S. Coming onto the back straight, yeah, just after the Senna S's. Not quite sure what happened and he's retired from the session. Not quite sure what happened.
There are only 40 seconds left, and Pecan just came out of the pit lane for his outlap, so he's not going to make it back around here. Neither is the other Ferrari of Zeus.
Yeah, so I don't think Sasham will make
it back around.
Sasham's on a flyer, though. So
Honos puts in a time of 108.690, and he still has one more lap left because he still has time. So Honos up on the front row for Alfa Romeo. See if he can improve and maybe beat out Snipper Pig for that pole position. It's going to be close for quite a few drivers coming up to the line at the end of their outlaps. The two McLarens come out on the track for whatever reason. As now the session has ended, and there's a huge crash here between a Ferrari of Pecan and the Williams of Shawsome. Not quite sure what happened there, but the Ferrari was in the grass on the inside of the final corner. So now Killer Birdman goes a little bit wide coming out of the Senna S through Sector 1. I'm not quite sure if that'll invalidate his time or not, but it might have saved him a little bit of time. So now we're going to wait for the march of all these drivers coming down towards the line.
Bossman might be able to hop up to P8 here. It'll be close between him and Zeus.
Bossman coming up towards the line now. Let's see if he has more straight line speed than Zeus, and he does. He's 0.02 of a second better than Zeus. Somebody else just jumped up the timesheets. It was Lucas. Lucas and the other Haas goes up into P7. Snipper Pig completes his final lap, but it was just a little bit slower than his last one. Honos is in the pit lane. Did make it around, I believe, to make a lap.
Tell you what, Chris is looking like he might get the pole here. He's got a good lap on softs. Nice and tidy through the last corner. Didn't spin it this time. Got the power down nice and smooth. As he's coming to the line, we'll see what he can do. Honos, meanwhile, 9/100ths behind Snipper Pig. And he doesn't improve.
Now Chris does not improve, so Chris will be starting on the medium compound tires. That might have been a strategy lift there from Chris. I mean, starting in the top 10 and P6 on mediums will be a very, very good place to be. As now all of the drivers have crossed the line for the final time. And Snipper Pig, once again, is on pole position, closely fought by Honos and Pecan, only around 1.2 seconds separating. pole position in P3 there. Sinister Owl for Renault is in P4. Zeus in P5. A nice, strong performance there from Ferrari. They really need it. Haas also as well with a very good performance in P6 and P8, and then the two McLarens in P7 and P9. Then Bossman and the other Renault is in P10. There's 2 grid penalties here. Pecan with a 5-place grid penalty and Shawson with a 5-place grid penalty. That'll be a huge blow to Pecan. And then rounding out the rest of the field, Shawson in P11, Kill the Birdman P12, Dilsack P13, Drew Yu in P14, Man P15, and Schweitzer in P16. Gonna go ahead and take a look at the race director at the incidents and see what happened between Pecan and Shawson here. So they had a collision, not quite sure how that happened. I'm sure we'll figure that out soon enough. But now we will start a new lobby and get it going.
Yeah, it really just shows how tight this is getting towards the end of the season. Even though the championship has been decided, these races are by no means decided, as just over half of a second separates the top 10.
So now it's time to quit the main menu and start a new lobby. Wow, what a qualifying session. That was nice. Alright, I guess I'm gonna make the new lobby too. Alright, track select. Gonna go ahead and put this on Brazil so I don't forget. Most options, F1, no qualifying, 50%, custom. Alright, I'll do the weather in a minute. Let's see, start time official. I'll go ahead and invite Pecan so he can invite everybody. Alright, host options. Okay, race settings, park friendly on, collisions on, game introduced, ghosting off, full setup on, regular, formation lap on. Alright, I think we're good. Oh, okay. Pecan's doing the lobby. Hell yeah. I don't have to do it. Yay! Alright. Drew Yu wants an interview. Alright. Get Drew in here. Who's saying that? Who drove in Rich and not Max? Drew, make sure your party audio is sharing.
It is.
Okay. All right. So here's our first interview of the day. We got Drew Yu, the Racing Point driver, the man who called the shots for the Racing Point 1-2 every week so far. The luck hasn't been great, but hopefully this week you can turn it around. So, how are you feeling about Brazil? Are you having fun?
Yeah, Brazil's a fast track, so, you know, it's always a lot of fun, a lot of overtaking in the DRS zones. We're starting at the back per usual, so we're going to have to work our magic in the early laps. Get some nice overtakes. Hopefully our strategy pays off. We can get some good points.
What kind of strategy are you doing? A one stop to the wet tires, or what are you doing?
I think we're just going to go simplest, least amount of pit stops. Probably harder tires to start out with.
Okay. Hopefully you can keep your Racing Point clean and keep from getting any sort of damage or incidents here. I know you guys are pretty unlucky, but thankfully Hefty isn't here to crash into you, so you should be okay.
Yes. You know, hoping to finish a race. It's been a while since I've been able to do that, but we're going to see what happens this week. Hopefully we get something good done.
Yeah, absolutely. I really hope that you can get something going for yourself. And I really want to see Racing Point in the points here today. I really want you to outscore Toro Rosso here so that we can get a little bit of a spicy battle in Abu Dhabi for that 10th place in the Constructors' Championship.
Just need a good day today. Hopefully my new teammate can help us out here.
Yeah, how did he do in qualifying? Were you about similar?
I was faster than him. Not really sure by how much, but pretty even.
I mean, as the number one driver, you know,
it's expected that I should be faster than
him. I mean, the number one driver always gets better equipment, so I mean, I completely understand. And Hefty's been complaining about that over the last few weeks about how it seems like the other Racing Point car gets a little bit better equipment than himself. But, I mean, you know, it is what it is.
It is what it is. I mean, sometimes you just gotta put your head down and drive.
Yeah, exactly. You might not have him in qualifying, but you definitely have him in the race every week.
Every week.
All right. Well, thank you for your time. I'm not quite sure if they're ready to go yet or not, but have fun. And I want to see some nice champagne celebrations on the top step of that podium, okay?
Yes, sir. Thank you.
All righty. Get Racing Point in those podium positions, buddy.
Yes, sir.
All right, that was Drew U24, the best driver in the league, if I'm going to be completely honest with you guys. So now, my co-commentator is finally back.
Apologies.
He had to go take a quick dump, lighten up, get it so he could go a little faster in his spectator booth.
Just made sure I had some refreshments for my throat halfway through.
So just so that everybody knows, we do have a full grid now of 20 cars. The drivers of Breezy, Greco, Fiji, and Real Space Hero have all joined this race. So now we have a full roster of drivers here in this GP. This is going to be a fun one around this little track.
Should make for a very interesting race. We saw a little bit of lap traffic being dealt with last week at COTA, but it's going to play a much more important factor come in today's race.
Absolutely, and because the track's so small, there's definitely going to be some blue flags getting waved at some of these drivers. So it'll be a very interesting one to watch. I've got my blue flag Red Bull ready to rock. I've been sipping on it this whole time. I'm ready to roll. All right, here we go. The penultimate round Wow, that was bad. The penultimate round of the UDL F1 League Season 1 Championship. As we know, Snipper Pig, if you're just now joining us, won the championship last week, beating out Pecan, the former Indy 500 winner in the championship. But the battle for third is going to be fierce. Breezy's going to be starting from the back, and so he's going to have to work his way through the field to be able to lock in that P3. But then P4, the battle for P4 is separated by 8 points between Bossman, Sinister Owl, and Real Space Hero. So all three of those drivers are going to be looking to have a really good result here. And then as well, Greco and Honos only 1 point apart for P7 in the point standings. And then throughout the rest of the midfield and into the back of the field, very close points battles between all of those drivers. So it's going to be very interesting to see who comes out better and in the top 10 in the points championship. And in the Constructors' Championship, Red Bull is on top by 58 points. Ferrari still mathematically eligible to win, but Red Bull has a very good chance of locking it up here in Sao Paulo, especially with that pole position. Renault in P3 in the points with Williams right behind them in P4, and McLaren as well. Haas a little bit further back, about 25 points adrift of McLaren in P6, and then a big jump to Mercedes in P7. Alfa Romeo 30 points behind Mercedes in P8, and then Toro Rosso and Racing Point in 9th and 10th in the Constructors' Championship. So, Dylan, better late than never. Who is winning this race? Who is your podium? Let's hear it.
I really like Chris on the alternate strategy. He'll be starting on the medium tires. No one else in the top 10 will. That'll be very interesting to watch him come up from a little bit farther back in the top 10, but I think he'll be able to do it come the end of the stint when his tires really come to shine. It's hard to go against Snipper starting on pole. He's our world champion this year. He looks strong. And then I'm going to pick Zeus to round out my podium, coming up from 5th.
So you're going to say Chris gets the win with the medium tires?
I'm going to say he's going to get the win on his debut race in the league.
You know, that is a very interesting shout, but also a very truthful one, if you ask me. That's a very strong strategy from him, getting P6 in qualifying on the alternate tires. Amazing qualifying effort from the Haas driver. And I can't agree with you more on Snipper Pig. I believe he will be in P2, but I'm going to be really boring here. Say that Honos rounds out the podium and gets some very strong points for that Alpha team. We're going to have to really pay attention to Breezy, Greco, Real Space Hero, and Fiji, all starting from the back of the grid. Let's see if they can work their way through the field and try to get some good points positions here.
And
they have a couple of drivers on the grid. Breezy and Greco must have made contact or something on the warm-up lap, and I believe they did. So Breezy and Greco unable to warm up their tires for this Brazilian GP, a huge detriment to both of those drivers. I don't know if I'm just seeing things or if there's cars blinking in and out like on iRacing, but that was very weird.
Yeah,
so hopefully that's not a lag issue and it's just a game issue.
15th and 16th. Here we go, though.
All right, Snipper Pig on pole position. Hono's right beside of him on the front row. The lights are coming on. 3 lights, 4 lights, 5, and the lights are out, and away we go for the Brazilian GP penultimate race of the season. Snipper Pig gets a very good start, but Pecan gets an even better start. Honos with a terrible start, and there's a huge crash in the back of the field. Shawsome spinning like a top in the back of the pack, and then another driver into the wall. It looks like Lucas in the Haas.
And he collects both Space Hero and, who is that, Fiji? Oh, man.
Bunch of time penalties coming out now, but up front, Snipper Pig with a good start, already half a second ahead of Pecan in P2. Sinister Owl with a great start up in the P3, and Honos with a horrendous start. Goes all the way down into P6. Really fell asleep at the lights there on the start. So all of these drivers are nose to tail coming through this middle sector. So now Greco goes down the inside of Drew Yu and makes the move stick for P8. So Greco already up into P8 from like P16 on the grid. Beautiful drive already from Greco at the first lap of this GP.
Yeah, did a real good job getting through the chaos and capitalized on just getting through there cleanly, making sure that the car stayed in one piece. As we see who will come in to get some repairs, as Dilsack is the first to come in for repairs. Lucas has unfortunately retired from the race.
Very unfortunate for Lucas. All these drivers put in a lot of time to try to get good around these tracks so that they can do well in these races, and we could tell that the time that Lucas put in really paid off. He was in a strong P7 for the start, but very unlucky for him in turn 1. Chris still in P5 on those mediums and not losing ground at all to Zeus ahead of him, so he might have the preferred strategy here, but the race is overcast right now, so the tires will last a pretty good ways. Greco gets another move done down the inside of that same hairpin, so he goes up in a P7. Now going through the final corner, so after 2 laps, Greco already into P7, a great drive from that Mercedes driver. So now there's a yellow flag, Man falling down the list, but it doesn't look like it was him. Not quite sure who the yellow flag was for. Now DRS will be enabled. Chris right on the back of Zeus in the Ferrari. He will have DRS, and crucially, Zeus will not have DRS on Sinister. So Zeus will have to really defend for his life here. Chris uses a ton of ERS deployment there and blows right by the Ferrari. Puts himself up into P4. Ref Josh and Drew Yu side by side through the left-hander. And Ref Josh gets the move done to 2 racing points. Up into P10 and P11, so a good start for those 2 drivers. Get that money and run, Greco. Get that money and run, trying to get that P7 back, but he locks up going into that right-hand hairpin.
Oh, and Ref Josh is around.
Ref Josh and Breezy made some contact there, I believe, or it could have been Bossman and Breezy. And Bossman has wing damage, so it was Bossman and Ref Josh, that made contact there.
Man also has some right front wing damage, missing that end plate, so.
While we were watching all of that, Sniffer Pig, Pecan, and Sinister Owl was still in the top 3 podium positions, but Chris on those alternate yellow medium compound tires in P4, very strong already from Chris in that Haas. As Kildeberg peels off into the pit lane to get some repairs. So now the top 3 are very close. Honos goes up the inside of Zeus into turn 4 and will take away P5, but Zeus won't just let him have it. He looks to go around the outside, but not quite close enough to get it done. So Honos will promote himself up into P5 and be looking to get more. As the top 3 are still nose to tail, a human centipede up here in the podium positions, and Chris about a second and some change behind all these drivers. If he can get into that DRS, this will be around a 7-car train for the lead pack.
And just outside of that train, battle for 9th is raging on as Drew Yu is defending heavily from Breezy, who's putting on immense pressure after coming, again, one of the drivers who had to sit out qualifying, coming from the back of the grid, gets around up to 9th now. Theme of this race seems to be keeping your nose clean is easiest way to gain some positions. Who would have thought?
Super Pig and Pecan battling it out for P1 right now. Super Pig going defensive to the inside line. Pecan trying to go all the way around the outside. He goes wide, but still keeps it on the track limits. They're still side by side coming out of turn 4 and now up to turn 5. Pecan will take over the lead. Super Pig tried his hardest to defend that off, but Pecan, with the help of DRS, just gets right around the outside of Sniffer Pig. A great move from Pecan there in the Ferrari to put himself up in a P1 in this race, a position that those Ferrari cars really need.
As Greco just made a dive bomb move on Honos, did it cleanly, but overshot the corner, and Honos gets the over-under.
Crucially, Zeus after that will not be in the DRS range of Honos, so this will be a very close battle up to the first corner once again. So let's see if Greco can go for a move here going into turn 1 with the help of DRS. Let's see if he's close enough. He looks to the inside of Zeus, and they are side by side through the center S. Greco trying to get the undercut, but not quite close enough. Zeus fending him off for now.
Meanwhile, Breezy, after getting past Drew Yu, just set the fastest lap of the race as Greco going down on Zeus in turn 4.
Greco gets the move done on Zeus and promotes himself up into P6 for that Mercedes. Starting from around P17 on the grid. Already up into P6. A great showing out of the Mercedes driver. Jump back up towards this lead battle. The Haas of Chris is barely in that DRS. If he can just scratch out another 10th on Sinister Owl, he grabs 2 tenths in that braking zone alone. Let's see if he can hold on to it and stay in that DRS window. And if he can, this will be a huge strain of 5 cars for this lead battle.
Greco's working on trying to close in on Honos to get back into DRS range and catch up to the front group.
As Chris is in fact in DRS and gained a lot of time there on Sinister, so not quite sure how long these soft tires will last, but very crucially, if they don't last much longer, Chris will have a huge advantage on the rest of these drivers in front of him as far as tire wear is concerned. As he's only 3 tenths now behind Sinister Owl. Sinister Owl's going to have to pick up the pace if he doesn't want to lose the DRS to the 2 drivers in front of him battling it out for the lead. As now all of the drivers are starting to get a little bit more spread out in the midfield to the back of the field. But the battle for the points positions is still raging on. This points battle is going to be huge for the rest of this race. Let's see what we can get out of this. Chris right on the back of Sinister Owl. He is closing down the straight in that slipstream. Now with DRS open. Both of them have DRS, but Chris has plenty of ERS deployment to use. Snipper Pig, I'm jumping up to him. He goes up the inside of Pecan for the lead. And Sinister Owl does a great job defending against Chris to keep his P3. But now Pecan will have the DRS back on Snipper Pig. Snipper Pig's going to go defensive, but Pecan still goes to the inside. And Pecan trying to get that move done once again on the inside this time around. Pecan pushes him out a little bit wide, and he will take the position back. So Pecan back up into P1 after a couple of overtakes and swaps for the lead between the Red Bull and the Ferrari driver. So now we have our first lap car right in front of us here, Mercedes of Fiji. Which I'm not sure if he's still in the race or not. It might be an AI car, so this might be a little bit of trouble for these
drivers. Yeah, I believe
drivers.
we have 2 or 3 AI cars currently circulating around there. Possible connection issues tonight with some of the drivers, which we hate to see, but we'll see if they can rejoin later on in the race.
It looks like the Mercedes does get out of the way quite well, but Snipper Pig lost a lot of time in that. So he's out of the DRS crucially, and now Sinister Owl will have a good shot at going around the outside. It's going to be 3 wide going into turn 1. They're trying so hard to get this to work. Sinister Owl has to go all the way around the outside of 3 different drivers, and he holds on to it and gets up into P2. A great move there out of Sinister Owl in that Renault. But now Snipper Pig and Chris will be right behind him in the DRS. Chris will be looking to go around the outside of Snipper Pig. Snipper Pig might drop down into P4 here. He goes a little bit wide. Chris might have a really good exit here. He's going to be alongside, trying to go all the way around the outside of turn 5. He's still there, and Snipper Pig might just get it done here. But Chris takes a little bit of a peek up the inside, but not quite close enough to get a move done. Wow, what an overtake by Sinister Owl around the outside of turn 1.
Meanwhile, what that has done is that has let Pecan pull away a little bit. He is outside of DRS range now, and both Honos and Greco are right on the tail end of this train, with Zeus barely in DRS range on Greco. So this battle is just getting better and better as Killed Birdman lets all the top cars through.
Huge DRS train here as now Snipper Pig looks up the inside of Sinister Owl, and he will take back P2 for now.
And
coming
that lets
out
Chris
of turn
get a good
3.
run out of turn 4, into turn 4, my bad.
And so now Chris looking to go around the outside of Sinister Owl here, going into turn 4, side by side,
Greco
2 by 2
coming
through here. Greco and Honos side by side, and Greco they're still side by side. Greco will have to go all the way around the outside of turn 5 here, but Greco pulls ahead of Honos and will take P5. And Chris up into the podium positions already on those mediums, and he will be looking for more as his tires still have plenty of life left, and those softs are starting to fall away.
Meanwhile, this just lets Pecan slip further and further away into the distance, as he's now almost a whole 2 seconds ahead of Snipper. Just under 2 seconds now as they start to close back in and through the 3rd sector. But 2nd through 7th place, you can cover them with a blanket. This is amazing.
Sinister Owl is not in DRS range of Chris in front of him. His tires are severely wearing out, so now Greco's going to have a good chance of going up into P4 here. Bandman retires from the session. He crashed out in Sector 2, I believe. But Sinister Owl, great defensive driving there from him. And Zeus takes away P6 from Honos. So now the Ferrari driver back up into P6. But now Sinister Owl having a very defensive here. Greco looking to the outside of Sinister Owl, gets to cover him off before the braking zone. So Sinister Owl will hold on to P4. But he's losing a lot of time to the 2 drivers in front of him, battling it out for P2.
Meanwhile, while that battle up front continues to rage on, Breezy used DRS to a T and got around to get that money, all the way up to 8th now as he sets his sight on this lead pack. Just over 1 second gap between him and Honos for DRS range.
It seems like these tires are starting to equal out now as Greco has a little bit of a look up the inside of the final corner on Sinister Owl. We might have a couple of different overtakes coming in here. Chris with a really good run on Snipper Pig already coming to the pit straight. He's going to be looking to try to get an overtake done. He's going to go around the outside, the long way around into turn 1.
Gets it done before turn 1 and has a clean braking zone and a clean line through turn 1 as Sinister's falling into the grasps of Zeus now.
As now Snipper Pig will have to hold on to it on the inside, but Chris flies by him with DRS and ERS deployment. So Chris or Alex now up into P2. Sinister Owl and Greco side by side. Sinister Owl uses his muscles to get back up into P4 there and runs Greco out of room. So now Sinister Owl back up into P4. A little bit of Lewis Hamilton defending there from the Renault drivers. There might have been a little bit of contact there. Sinister Owl lost the back end through the apex of that corner. Now Sinister Owl's tires are dead. He is getting oversteer like crazy. So Greco gets right back around him here.
What this has done is Breezy and Get That Money are right on the back of this train. In fact, it looked like Breezy might have looked to make a move on Honos coming on to the front straight. Can't quite get that run.
These soft compound tires are starting to fall away.
Nope, it looked like everyone was going to come in, but Sinister changed his mind when he saw Greco come out. Meanwhile, Breezy's on the inside of Honos and gets it done using DRS.
Chris has called back from that 1.5 second gap, so now he's in DRS of Pecan, and he will be closing in dramatically as the soft compound tires fall away. So Chris might just take the lead here by the end of this lap, if not at the start of the next one, whenever the soft compound tires, whenever they go in to change out those softs. And look at how fast Chris is right now. His pace is insane.
Meanwhile,
he's already caught up a whole 0.6 on Pecan in this lap.
Greco interestingly put on another set of softs. It looks like he might be going for the 2-stop strategy instead of the 1-stop.
That might be the preferred strategy for these drivers. Go soft, medium, and if it is, then Chris has a very good chance of winning this race by a ton of margin. because we know he's probably going to only be on a one-stop strategy here. As Pecan decides to stay out, Sniffer Pig as well behind these two. Sinister Owl, Zeus, Breezy, and Honos all staying out for another lap on the softs.
Breezy makes an
Breezy
inside move on
inside
Zeus.
On Zeus, the Williams and the Ferrari, but the Williams driver gets fended off quite well by Zeus, but now Breezy going all the way around the outside of turn 3, and he will get it done with the help of DRS and ERS deployment. So Breezy moves himself up in a P5. A great showing from Breezy here at the start of this race, as well as from Greco, clawing their way all the way from the back of the field to the higher points paying positions after the pit stop rotations go through. Chris is right on the rear wing of Pecan here for P1. This is going to be very close as Pecan's tires fade away. There's still a huge train from P4 all the way back to P8 here. Get our money and run, losing a little bit of time to Honos ahead, but three drivers of Sinister, Breezy, and Zeus in very close proximity of each other. As Pecan stays out for another lap, so does Sniffer Pig.
And
Sinister Hour pulls into the pit lane, so Sinister will have to watch him and see if he goes into the softs again. Chris, right on the back of Pecan here, was only a 1/10.5 behind the last timing line, but lost a little bit of time through turns 1 and 2.
Sinister is going on to the hards. Meanwhile,
so
Honos is also in.
Honos also goes on to the hard compound tires, so Sinister and Honos going for that one-stop strategy. And that's why all these soft compound runners are staying out for so long. So Greco is going to really have to put down a gauntlet of lap times if he wants his two-stop strategy to work here.
He is about 2 seconds ahead of Sinister and Honos, but that's not going to be enough. He's going to need to push if he wants to build enough of a gap to take that extra stop.
He does have a ton of clean air in front of him. The next closest drivers get that money and run 13 seconds ahead. So he's got plenty of clean air to push as hard as he wants to. Chris, right on the back of Pecan once again, coming down the pit straight. Let's see if he's close enough for a move this time around. Pecan stays out for yet another lap. So does Sniffer Pig. So now Chris looking up the inside, going up into turn 1, but not quite close enough. Pecan will hold on to P1 for now, but coming out of turn 2 and through turn 3, this might get pretty close as now Breezy and Zeus both pit.
Zeus goes on to the hards.
And then Breezy goes to the mediums. So now Chris still right on the back of Pecan. There is a driver in front of them, these two, in the Mercedes of Fiji once again to get lapped. So he's going to be holding up these drivers just a little bit. He's taking the apex in both of these corners. They're going to have to go around the outside. That AI driver is really costing both of these drivers, and now Sniffer Pig might be close enough to be in that DRS again, but not quite. He didn't gain enough time there, but Chris lost out quite a bit there. He dropped about 3/10 on Pecan. Now he's going to have to gain it all back, trying to get that first place back, or take it away from Pecan.
Now, I'm going to trust the telemetry that Zeus is on hards, but however, the cameras are showing that the tires are yellow, which would indicate a medium sidewall and a medium compound. So, might have a glitch going on there.
Usually on the timing tower, by the way, a beautiful camera shot in this helicopter cam, but usually on the timing tower, the tires are correct. Sniffer Pig pits from P3 and goes onto the mediums. Greco, with his 4-lap undercut onto the softs, doing this two-stop strategy, is in P3 right now. And
get that money put on hards as well.
So we got a big mix of strategies here, which is really going to make this race a very fun one to watch. But the longer that Pecan stays out and holds up Chris in P2 and keeps him from making some good laps on those mediums, Pecan's going to be losing time here as well as Maury stays out. He might be trying to stretch these softs long enough to go to a medium set to finish the race out. But I don't know if that's going to be a great idea. Pecan's tires are dying, and Pecan does peel off into the pit lane for his pit stop. So that releases Chris into P1, and Greco will, after Chris pits, will be in P1 if Chris pits before Greco. So Greco is really going to have to put down a gauntlet of lap times if he wants to pull away from the rest of these drivers. He's now Stipapig and Breezy are only 2 seconds behind. It's now Pecan puts on a set of medium compound tires, and Greco is coming through turn 2 now. So Greco will take over P2 from Pecan in that Mercedes.
And as Drew Yu comes in, that means that Chris is the only driver yet to pit on those medium tires. Making him work this alternate strategy looks very well for him.
Yeah, this, like we were talking about earlier, this alternate strategy might just work out great for him. He has the pace to do very well already. And if Greco can hold up the rest of these drivers on those ailing soft compound tires as his stint goes, Chris will have a very good shot of emerging out into at least the podium positions, if not the lead.
Yeah, right now Greco is definitely Chris's best friend on track, as he needs Greco to defend heavily and hold up these cars with fresh medium tires behind him. That way he can build as much of a gap as he can, stretch his medium tires out as long as possible. That way he can wait until the end to put on softs.
I'm going to jump back here to this train of a battle here from P2 to P5. These 4 cars, you can throw a blanket over all of these guys. The fire blankets are out and strong. The gap is slowly getting taken away from Chris out front by Greco, but Greco with his 2-stop strategy is going to lose quite a bit of points here compared to just doing the 1-stop.
Yeah, unfortunately, I don't think the strategy is going to work too well for Greco, as he's not building nearly enough of a gap as he needs. Still should be able to stay in the points, but it'll be close.
I will say, though, Chris is maintaining around an 18-second gap. And if he stretches these mediums out long enough, I'm very curious to see how long he can take these medium tires. If he takes them to about lap 22, 23, that'll be a good window for him to come in, pit for the softs, and then charge through the field of all these worn-out medium tire runners. There's a yellow flag in sectors 2 and 3. And there's
that would be for Kill the Bird. He was parked in a dangerous location and has been disqualified from the race.
Huge disappointment for the Toro Rosso drivers. He will be knocked all the way down into P20. It's a disappointing result for him. It's now Pecan right on the back of Greco. Will look to the inside of the Mercedes. The Mercedes is going to try to hold it all the way around the outside and will. So Pecan's going to get held up here for a little bit longer by Greco. As Greco's softs wear out more, Pecan's going to get held up more and more and more behind these drivers, as now there's a yellow flag in sectors 1 and 2. So have a couple of lap cars ahead of these guys. The Red Bull of Real Space Hero and the Racing Point of Schweitzer. They're going to be catching up to these 2 drivers very quick. Real Space Hero having a horrendous effort here in the Red Bull. Not quite sure what he ate for breakfast, but it wasn't the Bottas porridge. Very disappointing result here for the Red Bull team. Hopefully he can turn it around and get some points out of this race. Pecan goes a little bit wide there through turn 4. There's a yellow flag in sector 2. Not sure who that's for. Probably somebody slowing down to let somebody through.
Now, one thing that's interesting, Space Hero is only 8 tenths behind Schweitzer. That's a battle for 15, so it's out of the points, but it's still nonetheless a battle for position. They're only about, I would say 9 tenths ahead of Greco in this whole train, as Schweitzer pulls to the side and lets the train through. So very gentlemanly driver move by him, and we'll see. Hopefully Space Hero does the same here on the front straight.
Schweitzer does miss the final corner there. Got a little bit caught off by his speed there and thought he could carry more speed than he could. Now, Chris, 21 laps on those medium compound tires. This gap will close just a little bit, but it's still around 15.5 seconds. And if he can hold this gap, this would be a very good chance for Chris to come back through and overtake a lot of drivers and maybe get this race win.
Now, interestingly, Snipper did let Greco through on the front straight. He stayed to the driver's right, let Greco make an easy move on the inside heading into turn 1, but he slotted in between Pecan and Greco, and he seems comfortable to just ride there. It looks like he has the pace, so Greco thankful for a little bit of a buffer as Pecan now has to get around another car before he can re-attack Greco for second place.
Real Space Hero might be causing a little bit of headache for the Ferrari of Pecan.
He's just got a 5-second penalty for ignoring the blue flags, and one thing I missed earlier.
He's going to be disqualified soon.
This might be a little bit of teamwork. His teammate is right behind Pecan, so if he can slow Pecan up a little bit, it might be a little bit of team play as he lets Pecan by through, and he should easily let his teammate through. As he does. He runs wide and lets his teammate through, so possibly a little bit of cards being played there.
As Chris, while we were talking about that, has gone into the pit lane. He's coming out right behind the Renault of Bossman, who is a lap down, and they make contact going into turn 4. Bossman defending a little too hard on a driver that is a lap ahead of him. So Chris, only 2.5 seconds behind this lead back, and he will be closing rapidly on those brand new softs.
Now, the question is he's got 14 laps to make those softs last to the end. So that's going to be a tall order. He needs to make sure he doesn't use these tires up too much early in the stint.
I mean, I saw Dilsack went 18 laps on his soft tires before he pit, so it'd be a very, very close one for Chris. Because now Chris is on the back of Real Space Hero in the other Red Bull.
Breezy's on the outside of Snipper in turn 1.
Breezy trying to go all the way around the outside of Snipper Pig. He will have the inside for turn 2, and they're still side by side through turn 3. The great racing they had last week carrying over here, and Snipper Pig might hold on to it for now as they both have DRS. Breezy, though, using a little bit more DRS deployment, had a little bit of a better exit through turn 3, but Snipper Pig using his muscles. He's driving aggressively again, and now here he is in P3 still, fending off Breezy, the defending race winner.
Meanwhile, that let Chris close right on the back of this battle, as now Breezy has to look in his mirrors as much as Snipper does his, so this is shaping up to be a hell of a battle.
Yeah, and Chris, I mean, he's going to be a lot faster than the rest of these drivers, especially through this middle sector, so he was going to be closing fast anyways, but now he's closing even faster. He's already right on the rear diffuser of Breezy. They might look to make a move. They might even go 3 wide into turn 1 again. Now Breezy looks to the inside. Breezy going everywhere there down the straight. Chris puts in the fastest lap of the race. Breezy going up the inside of Snipper Pig. And now it'll be Chris's turn. Let's see if Chris can get the move done on Snipper. He'll have the tire advantage. He's going down the inside into turn 4. And he will make the move stick. A little bit of contact there as Chris and Breezy make contact, and thankfully nobody was spun out there, but now Breezy and Snipper Pig are side by side through this long right-hander.
Chris ran wide again, got dirty tires, and it's very hard to keep the cars on track once they get that film of dirt and grass on them.
And just so that everybody knows, that Renault is not Sinister Owl, that is Bossman in the other Renault. And he's trying to just stay with the rest of these drivers, and he's going to be causing a little bit of headache here for Chris.
Well, and interestingly enough, again, lap cars battling their own battle while dealing with leaders trying to stay in their own battle as Bossman ran
Chris
wide
has
on the
to
front
swerve
straight.
out of the swerve to miss Bossman, and now Chris would be looking up the inside of the Red Bull of Snipper Pig. Or no, is that
Space Hero.
Space? Yes, it is. So
Yeah,
Space
that lets
and
Boss go through as Chris opened the door for him.
So some great battles here from the lap down cars and from the cars on racing for the lead, but hopefully they don't interfere too much with each other. Now Breezy is 3 seconds behind Pecan after that bit of contact that they had in turn 4. So Pecan en route to a race win bar any incidents here with 2 lap fresher tires, then Breezy and 1 lap fresher tires and Snipper Pig.
Tell you what though, speaking of Breezy up there in second place, he would definitely be my vote for driver of the day. He sadly missed out on qualifying due to connection issues, but he came back, started from the back of the pack, made it through the turn, not even turn 1 fiasco, the front straight fiasco, kept his nose clean throughout the other incidents on track, and he's worked his way all the way up through second place as now we have a battle for third.
Chris trying to go around the outside into turn 1 once again of Snipper Pig. Great racing between all of these 3 drivers. Now Chris might just get it done, but Snipper might just have a better exit coming out of turn 3. He's going to be looking to the inside of Chris, but will just tuck back into the slipstream, looking once again, but not quite close enough. Chris right on the back of Breezy here, trying to stay ahead of Snipper Pig. Is now Snipper and Chris still nose to tail. Look at how much faster Chris can take this corner than the drivers around him on those mediums. Look at how much faster Chris is. Chris is just getting held up tremendously by these drivers on those older mediums.
Meanwhile, we have a couple other battles that are shaking out throughout the field as Hono's got around Zeus for 6th place. Space Hero and Bossman are still within DRS range of each other, as though it looks like Bossman can pull a slight gap. And also Shawsome and Dilsack are within half a second of each other as they head through the Senna S's.
So now Breezy and Chris are going to be side by side once again coming down the pit straight. Chris will have the DRS on Breezy and will pull far ahead coming into turn 1. So Chris has now released himself to go chase after Pecan as long as he can stay ahead of Breezy here. Coming into turn 4, let's see if Breezy can make do.
He's got to run.
The best of this DRS. He's got a great run going around the outside here of turn 4, and he will take the position back. He goes a little bit wide, so Chris is still right there. He's going to have to go all the way around the outside of turn 5, though. Let's see if he can make this move stick.
He's on the softer
Great
compounds. He's got the grip.
Two drivers. He's still going around the outside of turn 6, and now he'll have the inside for turn 7. A great move there from Chris to hold it around the outside of 2 corners in a row.
Fantastic
take away P2.
Move.
And now Breezy's going to be right on the back of him, but Chris has supreme grip coming out of in all of the traction zones here. So Chris should be able to get a better run, and look at it. Look at the run that he got out of that final corner on Breezy.
Now it'll be interesting to see if
Breezy
and Snipper. It'll be interesting to see if they can keep up with Chris. Although it looks like Breezy's going for the pass as Chris goes defensive.
Breezy tries to go around the outside. Now he will have the inside for turn 2, but then the outside once again. Snipper Pig right on the back of both of these drivers. They'll be looking to try to take advantage and at least gain 1 spot out of this ordeal. Snipper Pig looking up the inside of Breezy, and he will get the move done. So Snipper Pig, but he goes a little bit wide, and Breezy will be trying to go back to him. And now around the outside of turn 5. Let's see if he can do the exact same thing that Chris did a lap ago. And it looks like he will. So Breezy holds on to P3 for now and will stay on the podium for the time being.
Meanwhile, Greco Bird has sadly had to retire from this race as possible contact with Zeus, as Zeus is currently in pit lane getting a new front wing as well as a new set of soft tires.
A great drive from Greco there down the drain. Very unfortunate for Greco, one of the most unlucky drivers in this league. Crucially, Breezy is not in DRS range of Chris anymore. He was barely outside of that 1 second window going on to the pit straight. So Chris, if he can just pull a little bit more through turns 1 and 2 and get back out of the DRS zone, he does not. So Breezy will have DRS. If Breezy didn't have DRS, it would be a great opportunity for Snipper Pig to try to get this overtake done. Now Pecan laps the McLaren driver of Get That Money and Run, I believe. No, that is not Get That Money and Run. That is Ref Josh in P11. So all the way down into P11, or all the way up to P11 is now lapped in this Brazilian GP.
That's one thing we talked about before the race started, was dealing with lap traffic. It's a short lap here. It's a twisty lap. Not many straights.
And Chris has already gained a full second on Pecan ahead on this lap alone. Let's see if he can get a clean overtake on Ref Josh. The driver getting the blue flags here very soon. But Chris, very good chance of charging to the lead of this race and even taking away the lead from Pecan. As Chris sets a new fastest lap of the race, he's really pushing now on those 8-lap-old softs. As the fuel runs out of these cars, those soft tires will last longer and longer. And now Ref Josh is defending against Chris, but now he will let him through, I believe. Yes, he will. So Chris will get by Ref Josh, and Ref Josh goes really wide there and almost loses it coming out of that corner. So Chris is now within DRS range of Pecan in P1.
And what Breezy and Snipper need to do in 3rd and 4th place now is stay cool, calm, and collected, get around this lap car of Ref Josh, and just work together to try to get back up to that lead battle. If Pecan and Chris battle enough for the lead, they'll allow Breezy and Snipper to catch up to him.
And that's exactly what I was going to say. Let's see if Chris can get it done this time around, though. He's very close to Pecan, only 4/10 separating the two. So let's see if he has enough ERS deployment to get it done now. And the DRS is open. It's in the slipstream, looks to the right-hand side, but not quite close enough to get any sort of move done. But he's closed quite a bit on Pecan down that main straight. Let's see if he can get a good run out of turn 3.
And Snipper lost it in turn 1.
Snipper Pig spins out and hits the wall.
He tried to get around Ref Josh. I'm not sure if there was contact, but he has damage to the left front of that wing now. I'm not sure whether it was with Ref Josh or with the wall on his spin, but that half spin has cost him dearly. Possible podium position, and then if he has to pit for damage, he might be outside of the top 5 for good.
Chris right on the back of Pecan, and the longer that Pecan holds up Chris, the easier it'll be for Breezy to catch up to these two drivers. He's already gained half a second on this lap to Pecan and Chris. Pecan driving nice and gingerly on these mediums, trying to make him last the rest of this GP, and Chris pushing as hard as he can to try to get up into P1 and pull enough of a gap to where he can just coast free home in the last 4 laps of this GP.
Pecan defends
with
the ERS.
To the inside, but not quite close enough to make any sort of a move. And he might be close enough down this straight now. He gets a very good exit coming out of turn 3. He will have the DRS wide open coming down the back straight, but just not quite close enough to Pecan. Pecan, very good ERS deployment here, saving it up throughout the entire lap and just using it on those DRS straights. Chris is going to have to try to get a move done in the middle sector if he wants to get any sort of a chance at getting around Pecan if Pecan continues defending in this way. But the McLaren car is in the way of both of these drivers once again in the exact same spot. McLaren slowing down to let the drivers through, and now Breezy catching up to that McLaren, and he gets through as well. Very unfortunate spot to catch the McLaren of Get That Money Run, who is in fact an AI car, because Get That Money Run is not in the lobby. So now Pecan is only 2.5 tenths ahead of Chris. Coming out of the final corner, Chris will have DRS and the slipstream and ERS deployment. He's going to throw this up into hot lap, have the fuel mixture enrich. He's going to look to the outside going into turn 1. Just not quite close enough to get any sort of a move done, but Pecan's going to have a very tight line into turn 1, which will mess up his turn 2 exit. So Chris will most likely have a better exit here. But Pecan somehow actually gets a better exit than Chris coming out of turn 3. So crucially, Chris will not have any sort of a chance to get past Pecan here in turn 4 once again. Chris right on the rear wing of Pecan here. This is absolutely super close. As now Chris looks to the inside of Pecan, but thinks better of it. Does not want to pull Lewis Hamilton there.
Right now, Breezy, he's only 1.4 seconds behind the leader. He's actually in DRS range now as they come up towards the DRS detection zone. He's just licking his chops. He knows that Chris is going to become more impatient as they're coming to 3 to go. He's running out of time, hoping to pick up the pieces from these front two if anything happens.
Because now there are going to be 2 laps remaining in this race. Looks like Sinister and Honos gets past Sinister Owl there, but the race really is up front here. Chris right on the back of Pecan once again as they come down in through the Senna S for the second to last time. Chris with the DRS flap wide open, looks to the inside, and he might just go for it, but no, he pulls back in line behind Pecan and will try his chances again another day. Now Sinister and Honos once again battling it out, and Sinister jumps back up into P5. This lead battle is going to get the rest of my attention for the rest of this race. Pecan's going to have to do the best defending of his entire career here to keep Chris behind on those soft compound tires. As you know, those mediums that Pecan are on are very worn by now.
Yeah, it's definitely a three-way battle for the lead. It's Breezy's right there on Chris.
But as you say that, Breezy gets caught up on the curb and loses quite a bit of time there. Has a little bit of an oversteer moment, so it's just between Chris and Pecan for now. Chris will have to slipstream. He will try to look to the inside, but Pecan leaves him zero space to go up the inside and uses the lap car as a pick. And so now going through the final Senna S now, Pecan will hold on to the lead coming through the final DRS straight, or the second to last DRS straight. But now Chris right on the back of Pecan. Pecan going up the inside. Chris trying to go around the outside. Pecan doing a very good job of defending there, but Chris is going to have to get it done in the middle sector if he wants to do anything about it. He's going to be right on the back of him going through turn 5. Breezy right there behind him if anything happens. Chris trying to get by, but just staying in line for now. Breezy right behind these 2 drivers wants to get this win on the board. 2 in a row would be excellent for this Williams team, and trying to claw back in the Constructors' Championship to Renault. But Breezy has another oversteer moment there on his 20-lap-old medium tires. Chris right on the back of Pecan here, now coming through the final corner for the last time, going on to the pit straight. Breezy will not be a part of it anymore. Chris or Pecan. Pecan has a 2/10 advantage, but Chris has the DRS wide open. He looks to the inside, but not quite close enough. Pecan wins it in one of the closest finishes for the lead of the UDL League. Breezy comes home in P3. Snipper Pig coming around the final corner now will come home in P4 for Red Bull. Honos now with Sinister Owl right behind him, but it looks like they'll stay in this order. Honos comes across the line in P5 for Alpha, and Sinister Owl in P6. Zeus coming through the middle sector now. As look at that, all the way to P10 was lapped in this field. Unbelievable pace out of the top drivers. Now Shawsome and Drew Yu battling it out on the last lap here. They're side by side coming through the middle sector. Drew Yu trying to get some valuable points for this Racing Point team to give themselves a chance to take away that P9 in the Constructors' Championship. Zeus comes across the line in P7 for Ferrari. Drew Yu and Shawsome still very close proximity to each other. Drew Yu is going to have a huge disadvantage here coming onto the pit straight. Shawsome is right behind him. He's going to have DRS as well. Drew Yu's going to have to take the tightest line possible. He makes Shawsome go around the outside here, and it looks like Drew Yu might just hold on to it, and he does. So Pecan wins it here in Brazil for Ferrari. Chris on his debut race for Haas comes home with a very strong P2, and Breezy, an amazing drive from him. My pick for driver of the day in P3.
Yeah, that was an absolutely amazing race. Drive that Breezy had was absolutely stunning. Stayed clean, kept his nose down, and never gave up, and almost had the win should anything have happened between Chris and Pecan.
Absolutely. That was an insanely good race there. As now we get some cheers in the chat from Hefty Bag for his teammate Drew Yu, who made a great drive from P16 or P15 on the grid to P9.
And one thing we'll have to keep on is the decision of the post-race stewards between Honos and Sinister, as they both went off multiple times and both cut the center chicane on the final lap to differentiating degrees.
All right, so Pecan comes across the line to win UDL F1 League penultimate round here in Brazil. Chris comes home in P2 in his debut race. Breezy in P3, a very strong drive from him from P17 on the grid. Sipper Pig falls from P1 on the grid to P4. Honos as well with a horrendous start will finish in P5. Sinister Owl in P6. Zeus in P7 for Ferrari. Shawsome in his debut for Williams. Coming home in P8, Drew Yu in P9, getting some valuable points for that Racing Point team, and Dilsack rounding out the points in P10 for Toro Rosso. The final drivers to finish this race were Ref Josh, Bossman, Schweitzer, Real Space Hero, and someone else, I believe. Let me make sure that I'm not missing anybody. Let's see, Real Space Hero, and then the two AIs of Get That Money Run and Fiji also finished this race. We had 3 DNFs and a disqualification here in this race. Greco, Man, and sadly Lucas, who didn't even put in a lap in that race. And then Kill the Birdman got disqualified for parking in a dangerous position. So this has been round 20 of the UDL F1 League Season 1 Brazilian Grand Prix. My name has been Mr. Damage, accompanied by Dylan.
It's been a pleasure.
Thank you all for watching.
I sadly won't be at Abu Dhabi, so thank you.
Thank you all for watching the penultimate round of the UDL F1 League. Make sure to subscribe to my channel and the UDL F1 League channel. Turn on those notifications so you know whenever we're live every single week. On behalf of Dylan and myself and the rest of the UDL F1 League, thank you all for watching, and goodbye.